Welcome to Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. On this podcast, my guest and I will discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can live a life that is happy, healthy, and whole. So I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to it. Hey guys, real quick, before we jump into the episode, I need you to do the 3 S's for me. What is that? First of all, I need you to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss an episode of our podcast. Number 2, I need you to share it with your family and friends. Don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone else. Lastly, I need you to say something. Leave us a comment. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know what you want to see from us, what you like, what you don't like. We are open to your suggestions. We want to know everything that you want to let us know about the podcast. All right. Now, get back to the episode. All right. Welcome to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I am your host, Earnest James, and I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. If you haven't already, make sure that you listen, like, subscribe, and share our podcast on all of your podcast listening platforms, as well as make sure you guys are checking us out on our YouTube channel, which is the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network. Again, that's the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network on YouTube, where you will find the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, as well as the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, which you are listening to right now. Again, that's our YouTube channel, which is the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network, where you will find the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, as well as the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. Both of those podcasts, as well as some others, are on our network, which is the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network. So make sure you guys go there to check us out, right? Also, we're pleased to announce that our podcast is being sponsored by our new school community, which is the Deal to Heal School for Living. We want to expand our ability to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill. And so what we started was our Deal to Heal School for Living community to bring you resources and workshops to be able to help you on your healing and prospering journey. So again, you guys can check us out at the Deal to Heal School for Living on the school platform. You can look in the description for the link, or just scan the QR code in our upper corner. That'll take you exactly there. You can try it for the first 7 days, absolutely free. See if you like it. See what we have there, other resources and things for you to look into. And if you like it, stay. If you don't like it, still stay. So we're very proud about that. And we got some more great things coming for you guys really soon, to really be able to help you more than just listening to the podcast, but actually delivering workshops and trainings and things of that nature to really help you on this healing journey and this fulfillment journey that you may be on. So make sure you keep listening to the podcast. Make sure you listen out for that. And again, check us out on the school platform. Again, it's the Deal to Heal School for Living. Make sure you guys are checking us out there. But today, just like any other day, we are blessed with a guest, Mr. Andrew. How you doing?
How's it going? I'm doing pretty good, man. Doing pretty good.
All right. First of all, I want to say thank you for being here, because you could have been doing anything else with anyone else, but you're here with me and my listeners, and I definitely appreciate it. So, Andrew, do me a favor, introduce yourself to my audience. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
I want to say thank you for having me and for inviting me on the show. Like, I'm definitely grateful to be here. As he said, my name's Andrew. I am a father of 2 sons. My oldest is a junior in college. My other one graduated high school last year. So, and I'm a recovering addict after 14 years in active addiction. I've been clean for just over 2 years now. I'm a metal fabricator by day. I'm also a certified health, life, and recovery coach. Um, and so I'm looking to get into the recovery community and make a complete career change, really, and stuff. And I'm also the owner of the brand Dope to Hope. If you see my shirt right here, that's an acronym that stands for Drugs Over Personal Evolution to Helping Other People Evolve. And I want to take the proceeds from these shirts and the merchandise and be able to put it back into the recovery community to help other people, to help give them a better way of life. You know what I mean? Like to get them away from addiction and stuff. So
I love it. I love it. And as my listeners know, and I mentioned to you a little bit before we start recording, I'm very big on acronyms. I love acronyms. And
yeah,
so that by itself, you already got my support. You know what I mean?
sure.
But I love it. I love it. So Andrew, let's jump into this thing real quick, right? Of course, you have some amazing work that you're working towards now, but there's always a story before the story, right? Before the work
Mhm.
that you do now, and you kind of mentioned about being a addict and some of that. So let's go back into your story. As far as back as you can remember or like to share, who was the earlier version of Andrew? You know what I mean? Before you kind of got into the addiction and all of that. And then what was that initial change that made you, kind of change your ways now to the point that not only did you change, but now you want to change, help others to change as well?
All right. So me, before I got it, like we've all been young and dumb, right? High school,
Mhm.
college, you experiment, you smoke some pot, you drink some beer and liquor and whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like I went to college and was going for computer programming. I live in Lincolnton, which is a small town north of Charlotte in North Carolina. I went to King's College in Charlotte, and you take a small town boy and take him to the big city, you know,
Mhm.
that's a recipe for disaster a lot of times, So got in with the wrong crowd down there, and got into partying way too heavy. In the 9 months that I went to King's College and I lived in Charlotte, we went through 65 bottles of liquor, and that's not counting all the cases of beer and the 22s and the 40s. Like we all like to party down there, and it hit me a little bit too much, and I ended up dropping out of that before I flunked out. I had both my boys 15 months apart, just after I was 21 years old. So I'm a kid raising kids essentially. But I was doing a pretty good job, and then I met my ex in 2009. And in 2010, that's when she introduced me to crystal meth, and, started out, as something we just did on the weekends for fun. We had extra money left over. Hey, let's go get a bag, blah, 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 kind of stuff. And then that over the years, about 2015, 2014 is when it started to really take a turn like downhill. And,
Mhm.
so we went from doing like a half a gram every couple of weeks to like a half a gram every week, a gram every week, the 16th, like an 8 ball, like, and by 2016, like we were getting like a quarter ounce to a half ounce every week between just us, and like, um, I bought a house in 2017. In February 2017, I bought a house, and by the first week of November in 2018, 18 months later, that house was foreclosed, and I was moving into a shed on our dope man's property at the time. We lived there for about 4.5 months, and then we kind of traveled couch to couch. You know what I'm saying? Like trap trailer. I'd say trailers because there are more trap trailers around here than there were trap houses, really. But you know, and so we did that for about another 5 or 6 months, and after I got away from her, I still continued to use and was like in a really bad place. I had sometimes, I mean, there were several times from 2020 to when I got clean in February 2024 that I went off on drives that I had no intention of coming back from. I mean, and that goes to the suicide ideation and things that we spoke on, with your TED talk, right, Ernest? So that was really scary. But at those times in the deep and dark places that I was at, I figured I would be doing both my boys a favor if I was not here anymore. If they did not have to see their dad struggle, then I was going to be doing them a favor, and so, and 2023, I had watched probably 5 or 6 people that were in the same using circle, I guess, die from fentanyl poisoning, getting bags that were laced with fentanyl, and they unknowingly did it and they ended up dying from it. And that's the thing that gets under my skin. I'll touch on this just a bit right here because of where I'm at in my story. But like people that say fentanyl overdoses, like that's not really the case. Like, when you're getting something that's been cut with fentanyl and you unknowingly know that it's there, like that's a death. That's not an overdose. You know what I mean? Like overdose and dying from, being poisoned like that are 2 completely different things. And a lot of people like to get that mixed up. But like, so I knew, like I said, 5 or 6 people were in that using group that I was associated with by going to the same places to get my drugs. Like, and it was like Andrew. And every time I would go get a bag, all of 2023, it was like, I essentially equate it to playing a game of Russian roulette. Like how many more times was I going to show up to get a bag every week? How many more times was I going to continue to spin the revolver, per se, and pull the trigger before finally there was going to be a bullet in the chamber, and I was going to be the next statistic. You know what I mean? And but I knew I needed help to stop. Like I was that self-aware at the time. And, I had conversations with, at that time I was so lost, I didn't think there was a God, and I was just kind of really just talking out loud to just whoever was listening, if it was God, the universe, the creator, whatever, and I was just like, look, whoever you are, wherever you are, like if I'm destined for greater things than to die an addict, I need some help. I did not understand, and I didn't think that I could go to HR or my supervisor at work and tell them about the problem that I had, because to me, in my paranoid mind, right, like I was for certain if I admitted to using and getting high and being an addict, that they were going to be like, oh, we don't need your employment, sir. We don't need your services anymore. And they would have just fired me. So I was talking to whoever else was listening, some higher power than me, if you're out there and you're listening and I'm destined for greater things than to die an addict, then I need some help. I need a clean break. In November 2023, I got that for a month. My dealer got locked up on some stupid stuff. I was clean for a month, and I didn't realize that for what it was, because that had happened, how many times over the course of 5.5 years that I've been dealing with this guy. And, but I got clean and was just starting about the 5th week. I was just starting to get like over, being dope sick, really, like in the withdrawals and things like that. And he gets out of jail and immediately calls me up. Hey man, we need to go run the roads. Like, need to go get straight, blah, 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 and this, that, and other. And I was like, man, I've been clean for like 5 weeks and I really need to, stay on this path. I was like, I don't want to right now, and I told him no. And he was like, well, call me back if you change your mind, like, where I'm going to be at. And at that time I didn't have, most people, especially in the cartoons, you see like somebody's got an angel on this shoulder and a devil over here, in your ear about stuff. Like at that point in time in my life, I had a devil on this shoulder and a devil on this shoulder. And of course, and of course, like they won because they're both in my ears, like yapping, like who do you think you are, like trying to get clean? You're good for nothing. You're going to die an addict, blah, 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 and all this negative stuff. And I gave in to him, I listened to him. And as I was getting high in his bathroom, later on, after about 3 or 4 hours of running the roads with him and stuff, it's like I was looking at myself in the mirror as I'm rolling the bowl and, taking a hit. And I'm like, Andrew, what in the did you just do? Like, this was your clean break, and I didn't see it until it was too late. And I already had another bag. And I'm like, well, I'm not wasting, the $200 I just paid, like I'm going to do this and I'll worry about quitting again some other time. Like, but I was so, like, I felt a lot of like guilt tripping really hard on myself at that time, and really, really shameful feeling, and like just, that I wasn't strong enough to overcome those temptations and things like that. So with that being said, I went on like a 6-week bender, and I had no intentions of coming back from that. Like from that point on, I was just so disgusted with myself and really down and out about myself not being able to do what I needed was necessary to do to try and better myself. Like I was just like, okay, well, you know what? Screw it. If this is the way I'm going to go out, then I'm going out. You know what I mean? Like I had I wanted to be so far gone, like way, way, way out behind left field somewhere, like 10 blocks down the road outside left field, like to where I couldn't come back. And, but, God had other plans, fortunately,
Yeah.
So in those 6 weeks, I was like really, really, like I had been at a rock bottom already, but that was like a new level of low for me. Like I was just a shell of my former self. Like I don't even really know how I continued on that 6 weeks. Like, at the end of January, I started having some mental breakdowns, like at work, like, cause my soul, looking back, I realize all this stuff now, but like, look at the time, my soul was screaming at me, like, you've got to do something. You've got to change. Otherwise you're not going to be here anymore, and, there were several days in a row that I had mental breakdowns at work where I would go to the bathroom and would just bawl my eyes out like for 15, 20 minutes. And then, look at myself in the mirror and like, wipe the tears off my face, get cleaned up, you know what I'm saying? Like, and walk back out of the bathroom like nothing had ever happened and go right back to work. You know what I'm saying? And, about that same time, I had taken my money and given it to him like I'd done hundreds of times before over 5.5 years, send him down the road with money. And for whatever reason, he didn't call me whenever he came back, like, and stiffed me on $250. And, but looking back now, that was like, God gave me another chance. You know what I'm saying? Like God said, okay, you didn't see the clean break that I gave you a couple months ago. Like, here's another one. You better take advantage of it. You know what I mean? And so I had those mental breakdowns, and it was like, okay, something's really got to change here, Andrew. Like you cannot continue on just trying to suck it up buttercup, you know what I'm saying, and just power through it. Like you need to figure some stuff out. So at that point, I was so desperate for help and to try and get better, that I went to my supervisor and I said, and I sat him down and I told him what was going on. Like, I was like, look, man, I was like, I've got a lot of issues and a lot of things that I'm dealing with right now, like inside my mind, like, and, like spiritual warfare, whatever you want to call it. Like, I need to take some time off work because I need to fix what's going on up here and inside me here. Like, and that's the only way I really know how to put it, and he asked me, he said, well, have you talked to HR, and I was like, no, I wanted to come to you first, and he told me, he said, well, come on, like, let's go in the office, let's have a sit down, and we're going to figure out a way to get you some help. Like, because I work for a small company, so they're really understanding of, personal things that need to be dealt with and stuff like that. And they've had people there that had worked there in the past before that had taken time off work to be able to get themselves right and stuff. So they were really understanding of like the mental health aspect and things like that. So we went, had our sit down, and we came up with a way that I could hold my job for. I told them at least, at the least, 2 or 3 weeks. I said, and it might be longer than that. I said, I don't know until I get to sit down and actually start focusing on all this stuff. And so we came up with FMLA no pay, that I could be able to take. And so they told me, they said, you'll get, you can take some of your vacation time and sick days, this first week, so you still have a check. And then after that, you just keep us updated with whatever you're going through, and, just be open and honest with us about what's happening, and we're more than happy to work with you. So like, I'm so thankful and grateful and happy that they were really understanding about this. Cause like, that's really what saved me, is them being understanding, for what I needed to do to like fix myself. And they said, we're sorry, we didn't know you were going through this. And I'm telling them, that's the point, really. I mean, when you suffer with mental health, you yourself know, and probably a lot of your listeners out there that have dealt with mental health struggles and things like, and depression and stuff, like, that's the point. We put on this big happy face, hee ha, I'm so happy and everything, like day in and day out. Like, nobody really knows what you're going through. And that's, something that if you're listening, like, that you need to understand about people like us that have struggled with mental health and stuff. We might look fine on the outside and we might handle our day-to-day duties, but like, when we get in our cars and we're driving, or when we pull in the driveway, or we're sitting at home at night, like, we're just like, just beat down, like, because it's hard to wear that mask and keep it on like all day long. Like, that is a struggle in itself that I don't wish on nobody, not even my worst enemies, And so I left that day, and I went the next day. I went and signed myself into RHA up in Lenore, which is like a mental health / substance use crisis place. I stayed there for 2.5 days. And during those 2.5 days, it was just light bulbs and bells and whistles going off like in my head and around me. And like all these epiphanies and things were being shown to me and stuff. Like, it was, I really call that my spiritual awakening moment, honestly. Like, I read Happy, Happy, Happy by Phil Robertson, his first book that he wrote, twice in there, because that was the only good book that I could find to read to pass the time while I was in there. But like, it was a really good book, you know what I mean? And like, that's what really made me start reconnecting with God, reading his story and the struggles and how he was such a drunk and everything, and how him and Miss Kay were in their early relationship and the struggles they had, and how she never lost faith in him, and he eventually turned it around. I mean, and he turned into one of the biggest, not only reality TV stars, but, like his company, Buck Commander, Duck Commanders, was just unbelievable, like, where it's grown to and stuff. And he also wrote a couple more books before he passed away and stuff, like, so that really helped me. But like, I was shown when I was in there for those 2.5 days, what would happen to me if I went back to my old way of life, if I did not stay on this path of recovery, and if I did not get clean. And that was, certain death. And it wouldn't take long. If I'm convinced by now, like, and I've seen in visions and things, God has shown me, like, if I went back, like, that first hit that'd be it for me. Doesn't matter if fentanyl's in it or not, like, my body cannot handle that anymore.
Right.
So, those 2.5 days I was in there, after the first day wasn't bad, because all I did was sleep, and I would wake up for meals and snack time, and then I would go right back to bed again. The second day, I paced up and down the hallways about 85 times probably, and one of the nurses was like, "You look like you're anxious. Are you anxious? Are you nervous about something?" I was like, "Really? Do I look?" Like, kind of flipped on her a little bit, like, "Do I really look like I'm anxious? Can you not tell that something?" Yeah, like, no, yeah. I'm freaking going crazy, like, because I realized pacing up and down the hallways, like, I was stuck in that place. for at least another couple of days. And like that scared the shit out of me, honestly. Like, so I sat there, I asked her, I said, do you have anything to calm my nerves? Or like, I don't even want to know I'm here. Like, give me something to knock me out. And she was like, okay, I got you just the thing. And she fed me a Dilaudid. I put it under my tongue, and like, I was out like a freaking light. Like, I slept the whole rest of that day, and I woke up the next morning. I felt a lot better. And they said on Saturdays they did telehealth doc visits and stuff. And if you wanted to sign yourself out, then you could request one of those here at teledoc visits, and you could, discuss that with the doctor. And then if that's what you really wanted to do, and that's what I did, I said, I want one of those visits. I said, because I need to get out of here. Like, you've not been in here the full 72 hours. Like, I don't care. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know what I need to do to fix myself. Like, I've seen enough things in here, in my dreams and my visions and stuff, like talking to the Lord. Like, I know what I need to go home and do. Like, I need to get out of here so I can go home and get on it. And they were like, okay, and so I had my teledoc visit, signed my AMA forms, signed all my release papers and all that stuff. They brought my clothes in, I changed, and I come home, and it's been on ever since. Like the rest is history, as they say, pretty much.
Good, and we'll get to that part, right? The new you, right? But I want to go back. I want to go back to a couple of things I wrote down while you were talking. And my first question, I've asked this question to a friend of mine before, and I don't know the demographics of where you grew up, right? So I'm here in Chicago, in the Chicagoland area, and so in our area there are, for lack of a better term, crackheads. People that are strung out, and you see them all the time, like, in different spaces, like they're around. And I had a guy who, grew up in that environment and everything. And he was telling me, kind of just talking, but he ended up going away to the service or whatever and got introduced to, I'm going to say crack, you know what I mean? And tried it, you know what I mean? And so my question to him was, and I'll ask you this question too. Again, I don't know the demographic of how things were around where you live, but with him, I knew, because he came from the same area that I did. And I said, how do you, having grown up, seeing, crackheads, seeing people strung out on drugs, seeing this all around you, you know what I mean? Whether it was in close, proximity or, from a distance, but you see it, you see the evidence of it, how do you, as a clean person, then grow up and say, I'm gonna try it. You know what I'm saying? So those are the questions that I asked him. So I'll ask you that same question, because to me, logically, in my mind, and this is my reality, because I grew up seeing, different things too. And it's like, I'm not, like, I don't even drink and smoke now. I've never smoked anything. I did drink a little bit, when I got older, but then I was just like, nah, this ain't for me either, but I never smoked anything, just because of the example that I already seen. And so I asked you that same question because I don't know, you know what I mean? I don't know what would make a person, having seen the evidence of what could happen, still say, okay, I'm gonna try it anyway.
Well, it wasn't really a choice of, I wanted to try it. Like, when me and my ex were together, like I did cocaine and stuff like that too. After I dropped out of college, like I got into cocaine too, and ecstasy and some other stuff. And that wasn't bad per se, like when we started dating, I would do some cocaine every now and then, and she would do her stuff, the meth and things. And, we were on the way home from the bar one night, and she had our lines cut out, mine and hers on the same mirror. And like, usually she did hers first, so I didn't get them mixed up because I'm driving, and for whatever reason, you know what I'm saying? Like, she made me do mine first, you know what I'm saying? And I mean, tricked me. Yeah, I can maybe say that, you know what I'm saying? Like, so, and then it was like, what did you do that for? Like, well, you just gonna have to ride it out now. And like, it was, all downhill after that, you know what I'm saying?
But I want to go back, to even before
I
that,
was
even like
doing,
in college, like you said, you went to college and
yeah,
you were introduced to it. So that's when I wanted that first initial introduction to whatever drug. You know what
to
I'm saying?
cocaine
Like,
and
what was
everything,
the thing that made you just be like, I want to try anything?
because you see people having fun on it, and it's like, hey, I want to be able to do that. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
so for me, like drinking and smoking pot, like, yeah, okay, that was cool. But then, like, some of my friends were like, hey, come to this rave with us, and I went, and I was like, man, why is everybody dancing around and playing with glow sticks, and doing all this stuff, like what's going on here, and they're like, oh, like you need to take some ecstasy, and I'm like, no, I've heard bad shit about that. Like, can't you die from that? And they're like, only if you're stupid about it, like, but you got to be smart,
Right.
whenever you take this stuff. And I'm like, like, so do you want to try it? And I was like, no, I don't think I want to, but peer pressure is mother, right?
Mhm.
So after 2 or 3 weeks of doing that, it's like, you know what? Okay, give me one,
Yeah.
and then you take it, and then, it's like, just like when Adam and Eve ate the apple, you know what I'm saying? Like your eyes are open and it's like,
Right.
oh, wow, this is awesome. You know what I mean? So, and then it's on like Donkey Kong
Yeah.
after that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then,
Yeah. Right. Right.
and then, I was sitting with some friends watching the movie Blow. And I was like, damn, cocaine looks like a lot of fun, maybe I should try that next, and of
Mhm.
course there were people around that were like, well, here, try some, and then that was, I mean,
Mhm.
I got pretty strung out on that too, you know what I'm saying, for a little
Right.
bit. I mean, it's just because it looks fun, and like you
Right.
see people doing it and they're having fun, and you're like, I want to be a part of that, especially if you're somebody that's always, kind of been a follower and not so much
Mhm.
a leader of the pack kind of mentality, you know what I mean? So like I had a lot of self-confidence issues and things like that, like,
Right.
and it was kind of socially awkward growing up, like, because I had ADHD and stuff like that too. So like
Right.
I had a lot of issues with that. Like I came from a perfectly normal, like, well, normal, I mean, middle class, white family, like growing up. Like I had both parents in the home, you know what I'm saying? Like good role models. Did, dad drank beers every once in a blue moon, maybe, you know what I'm saying? But like he wasn't
Mhm.
drunk all the time or anything like that, nowhere close, And so like I didn't get introduced to all this stuff until, like I said, I moved to Charlotte and
Yeah.
I started seeing all this stuff. And it's like, damn, all this looks like fun. Look at how much fun these people are having. And you see everybody else doing it and you want to be part of that too, like, because you want people to like I wanted people to like me and think I was
Right.
cool too. So
Right.
of course, I'm gonna follow suit, you know what I'm saying? Like, monkey see, monkey do kind of
Right.
deal.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I
Okay.
went back and I did it, and I mean that's it,
Yeah. Now
but
I want to talk about one of the other things that you mentioned, that even that reality of fast forward years after, right, and you're down this road of addiction, and you mentioned about getting to the point where you start seeing your people in your circle starting to die when the fentanyl whole situation came
yeah,
about. And when you were saying it, right, when you were saying it, the same thought came to my mind that as you spoke it was that Russian roulette, right? That little spinning the wheel, and not knowing whether it's going to be your last time or not, and even having that mindset of it possibly could be your last time, but are you still going to do it? You know what I mean? And
yeah,
even in that space, what kind of was your thought process and there, and what kind of made you say, you know what, that's enough for this too? Because I just want to just dive a little bit more deeper in that, because it may be someone at that point where they know I shouldn't be doing this, and like you said, it very well could be the last time I do it. But what would maybe be your strength, or what was you doing in for you in that moment where it's like, okay, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it this one time or whatever.
I mean, for me, it was, I knew the consequences that were present there, like every week that I went back, that I continued to go back, like even though, I would tell myself as I was driving over there, like, Andrew, what are you doing? Like, why are we going to get another bag? You can die from this. But then, the addict part of my mind and like my addiction, my demon, you know what I'm saying, was like, who cares? This is how you're meant to die anyways. You know what I mean? So it was just like, just shut up, go get your drugs, and like, let's get high, And I always gave in to that, because at that time I was really convinced that that was what my destiny was, you know what I'm saying? That I was supposed to die as an addict, and whatever. So like, it didn't, I mean, at that point, like I said, I had already taken several drives that I didn't intend on coming back from. And, so I wasn't really afraid of dying anyways. Like, I was like, well, if I take a hit and my heart blows up, then, oh, well,
Yeah.
I mean, and I actually probably would have been okay with that, until I woke up somewhere else, in purgatory and hell, and being like, what the hell am I doing here?
Right.
I
So I
mean,
want to, okay.
And you're only going to change when you are ready to change. You know what I mean? Like I can't make you change, and you can't make me change, and we can't make this person over here or this person over there, you know what I'm saying, change unless they themselves are ready. So like, all you can really do for people that are in these situations is just pray for them, and just continue to love them, because they feel enough guilt and shame and, all of these negative emotions. They already feel enough of that because they shame themselves and they guilt trip themselves enough about it. They don't need any of that. And that's a big thing that we have on these recovery communities that I'm part of on Facebook. You know what I mean? It's like the people that are like I'm not any better than somebody else that's still out there using. You know what I mean? Like, I've just been lucky enough to make it out, like, because I said I've had enough, like,
Right.
But some of these people need more resources than what is really available for a lot of people. A lot of these people don't have IDs, or they don't have this, or they don't have that. And if you don't have this stuff, then, well, we're sorry, you can't get into our treatment facility, or we're sorry, we can't treat you unless you have this or that, like whatever. So they just continue to suffer. And then you've got people that are in positions to help them that want to kind of, look down on them, like my way of my visual is like, people that wear glasses, that wear their glasses down here on their nose, and they look at you like this over the top of your glasses, like they're better than you or something like that, like I ain't better than nobody, like, so, and I don't judge people on stuff like that, but like, it's a tough spot to be in, you know what I mean? Because you want to help this person, but at the same time, until they're ready to receive help, then all you can really do is just pray for them and continue to love them, even if it's from a distance, to be able to protect your peace or whatever. But like, they don't need guilt tripped, and they don't need shamed any more than what they're already doing to themselves. Like, and that's really why a lot of people never find treatment and never can find recovery. Like, that's a big thing in like NA or AA or like some of these other programs. They look at people and they're like, well, you have to do it this way, or if, like, the programs are really big on not being on head meds, and some people need those meds to be sane, you know what I'm saying, and to be able to live their best life, but they don't like that, and they're like, well, you're still using substances, and to me and some other people I spoke to, it's like, well, you smoke 2 packs of cigarettes and you drink eight cups of coffee a day, you know what I'm saying? Like, how are you any better than somebody else that's taking Zoloft or something, you know what I'm saying, like, to help them live their best life to where they're actually be able to function mentally, you know what I'm saying, and be a contributing member to the society about stuff. Like, the really, really big gray area on a lot of that stuff. Like, when you break it down, and like, it's, people listening to this, might be like, oh, he's wrong, I don't care, you know what I mean? That's just my opinion and my take, and the way and things that I have seen on my recovery journey, you know what I'm saying? So like, but I mean, the program is also good because it helps a lot of people too, NA and AA and the steps and all that. Like, it's saved bunches of people, but it's 2026. The recovery landscape and the treatment landscape for addiction and stuff has changed so much. Like, there are so many other ways out there and paths to recovery. Like, my way to recovery is going to look different than his or hers or yours, you know what I'm saying, or whoever's. Like, and theirs is going to look different than everybody else's. Like, the fact to me is, as long as you're here on this side of life, you know, as long as you're living your best, like to me, like, okay, here's a good example, I guess. Like if you went from shooting fentanyl or meth or something, okay, and you're Cali sober now, like, so you smoke pot like every day, but you're living your best life, then hey, congratulations. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to celebrate that because you've went from all these self-destructive behaviors and things like that to being able to be a functioning member of society, and you're able to live a better life. You know what I'm saying? Then, hey, that's freaking awesome. You know what I mean? To me, like, and if you use 12 steps and you don't do anything, then hey, that's freaking awesome too. Like, I can get down with that. Like, on this side of life, to me, we all should be on the same team, and we should all be welcoming and loving and supporting one another. You know what I mean? Like, not shaming somebody because they choose to recover different than you do, per se.
Right, right. Yeah, and I agree with that because I think you kind of got to use what works for you, right?
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about me even doing my TEDx talk, which was about surviving suicide ideation. And one of the things I mentioned even with that was having a conversation with a therapist, because I told her that during my time when I was in my deepest depression and having suicidal ideations, when I focused on myself and all the things that I was going through that I couldn't change, I felt hopeless and helpless. You know what I mean? And that didn't help me. So when I began to focus on my daughter and put all my energy into her and making sure I showed up for her, not showing up for myself, because when I focused on myself, it just kept me more depressed and stuff.
Yeah.
So when I began to focus on her and showing up for her, it gave me what I needed to push through. You know what I mean? And I remember the therapist telling me, like, well, Ernest, we kind of teach people to focus on themselves because you have to do whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but that didn't work for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, like you said, you just got to find what works for you. There's a million ways to get to, the end of the rainbow. Choose a color. You know what I'm saying? And whatever that gets you there to that end that you're trying to get to, then that's what works for you. And we have to be okay with that.
Yeah, for sure.
I wanna go back to another thing that you said, which I think is very important, because you even mentioned about, no matter how much we may want for another person to get better, they're not going to get better until they're ready, right? And so even in your story, when you got to the point that you was like, all right, this is enough, where you actually went to your employer and be like, look, this is what I'm dealing with. I need some help. How important do you think that is to actually ask for help? Because I think that's a issue that we have also when we're trying to come out of whatever it is that we're struggling with. It's like, oh, how are they going to look at me? How are they going to feel about me? And then you have to get to a point that you're just like, I don't even care. I need help and I'm going to ask for it. You know what I mean? So how important, was that in your journey? And how important do you think that is for all of our journeys and whatever we're going through, to get to the point that just be like, I need help?
Yeah. So before I went, I talked to my employer, you know what I'm saying, like that day, and I left and I came home and I made a post like on Facebook. I took a picture of me, like, and I told like whoever was on my friends, you know what I'm saying, like, this is me, like, unashamed, raw, like, I don't give a fuck what you think about me. Like, I'm struggling right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, and I'm taking a break. I'm going away for a little while. I don't know how long, but I've got a lot of stuff with mental health and things like that I have to deal with, like, so I can be the best me. You know what I mean? Like, please pray for me, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Like, but like it asking for help, a lot of times, especially us as men, right? We think asking for help is a sign of weakness. But with the men's mental health crisis and everything else, you know what I'm saying, we know that like asking for help is really one of the most courageous things that a guy can do, like, because we're not meant to shoulder everything that we shoulder, and we're not meant to carry all of the things that we carry, especially in today's society. Like, the bar is so freaking high for like what we're expected to do, as men, like, and it's scary. And like, there's a lot of stuff, on there. Like, so, back in the day, we had everybody says it takes a village. And back in the day, you really had a village to help support you. You know what I'm saying? Like nowadays, we're off on a freaking island all by ourselves, somewhere like, and it's scary and it's hard and it's heavy, so like, if you're a guy that's out there struggling, like, please don't hesitate to ask for help. Like the graveyard is full of too many guys. The crematorium has been, too many guys have been through there like that thought that asking for help was a sign of weakness, and it ended up costing them their lives. You know what I mean? Like, please speak to somebody. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's your neighbor, if it's your friend, if it's your parents, if it's some random person on Facebook, you know what I'm saying? Reach out to somebody. Like, the age of information, and in this age where everybody is connected, like, you can find Facebook groups or stuff like that you can reach out to somebody, and there's plenty of people that'll be like, hey man, I was in the same situation that you're in. This is what helped me, like, talk to me about it, like, let's talk, let's chat, blah, 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 whatever, like, and so, yeah, reaching out is like, one of the strongest. It was one of the scariest things that I ever did. And it was also one of the best things I ever did. I mean, that was the big turning point for me to get to that point. Like, I don't care what anybody thinks about me anymore. Like, if you think I'm weak, okay, maybe I am weak, but I think I'm pretty freaking courageous to stand up and admit that I have a problem, because everybody nowadays doesn't want to take accountability for anything. That like, accountability is almost like loyalty and honesty, like in today's world. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're just words in the dictionary. And so to take accountability, like, hey, I'm not okay, and I'm okay with that, like, it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
So asking for help, like, just please do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, your future self, your wife, your kids, whoever, like, will thank you for it. You know what I'm saying? Like, farther down the road, for sure.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. One of the other things that you mentioned, you talked about, and you put it in these words. After you just kind of prayed and just like, hey, whoever's up there, you know what I mean, like, help me because I need help. And you mentioned about having these guilt trips, when you went back after you had that prayer, right? After you made that prayer, and then you go back and you're like, dang, I shouldn't have did that, and even having the mental breakdowns, from a spiritual person as I am, I believe that, even though you referred to it as guilt, I refer to it as conviction, because once you pray and once you ask God to help you, when you don't have, I would say, before you make that spiritual connection, you're actually acting pretty much out of your natural man. Like, everything you do is just out of your natural man. But once you make that connection, now God says, okay, you asked me for help. So now one of the things that he gives us is conviction. It's not guilt, it's conviction. So it's when you do something that you're not supposed to do. It's like, I already prayed about this. I already asked for help about this. And before, you probably never would have thought about it. You're like, hey, I'm going to get my drugs or whatever.
Yeah,
but now
sure.
you made that spiritual connection, and now you've been given the gift of conviction, which is when you go to do something that you're not supposed to do, that little voice that mentioned about having the two devils on your shoulders. Yeah. Now you got that conviction, which is that angel saying, now you shouldn't be doing, you know what I mean? And so now that's where that conviction comes in. Now I'm like, hey, you asked for the angel, now I'm here. You know what I mean? Yeah. So even in your journey, how big of a turning point did that make, now that you made that spiritual connection, and now you got this angel that's saying, hey, I can't make you not do it, but I can remind you of what you prayed for, because you prayed for help, you prayed to be able to get away, and now I'm here just to remind you and to give you that conviction now that you may go ahead and do it anyway, but you're going to feel bad about it because you asked to feel bad about it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and that's really what it was, you know what I'm saying? Like, now that you mentioned that conviction, that's exactly what it was, but the demons and the devils were like, haha, and were shaming me for it, really, you know what I'm saying? But, God was kind of like, hey, you asked for help, I gave it to you, and now you don't want to take it, like, what's up, kind of thing, like, really, like. But when I got clean, And that was one of the things that I did, like whenever I was on my drive home. Like it's like a 45-minute drive from there back here to where I live at. And that was one of the things I said. I said, all right, God, I said, I've tried for however many years in my life. I was 39 and a half at the time. Like I was like, for my whole adult life, I've tried to do things Andrew's way. Mm-hmm. And we see where that's gotten me, like it's not worked out too well. And I was like, I was like, so here I am, Lord, like, do with me what you will. I'm done trying to force my way of life and the things that I want, so like, you lead the way and I'll follow, kind of thing. And that's really what it's been ever since, you know what I'm saying? Like, but yeah. There's another side to that, like you can ask for God to guide you and you can ask him to reveal the steps for you that you need to take, but you have to be willing to do the work too. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't just like, and I actually made a short and posted it on my YouTube the other day about that, about how prayer works. You can't just pray to God and ask for something, for him to do something for you, and then just kind of, sit there and twiddle your thumbs and like expect him to drop it in your lap. Like you've got to be willing to go out there and put in the work and the effort and things like that to show him you're worthy of those blessings and things like that, So like, yeah. And that's really where I'm at now. And that's what's led me to this podcast. That's what led me to Stacy's, you know what I'm saying? And like all these other things that I've got lined up and going now is like, because, I made it. I was one of the lucky ones, I made it to this side of life. God has a bigger purpose for me. And I understand that now. And that's what it is to come out here and to get on these podcasts, to go to these recovery events and like to do all these things, like to share my testimony, to show people that change is possible, that you can make it out, you know what I'm saying? But it's not easy, you know what I mean? Like, just like, and another thing is, just like, we didn't ruin our lives overnight, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
It was a process, like a gradual process, like sometimes it takes months, sometimes it's years. And like in my case, you know what I'm saying? It was over a decade, but like, so you're not going to fix yourself overnight either. It's a process and it's a journey, but if you stick with it, like, man, I mean, It's just like, I was on my walk earlier before I came home to get ready to do the podcast. And I was standing there in the sun. And I was just like, and I really wish somebody had a picture to be able to, or somebody was walking with me, because I'd have had them take a picture, because that would have made a good post, because that, to me, I was standing there and I was telling God as I was standing there, like looking up at the sky, like I was like, I'm standing right here in the midst of so many things that I once hoped and prayed for, you know what I mean? Like, and didn't ever think that I would get, but like, I know for a fact that I'm living at least 5 answered prayers right now. You know what I'm saying? At this point in my life. And I know that there's plenty more that are already on their way to me. You know what I'm saying? And like, I'm just super grateful, thankful, blessed, whatever, like happy and ecstatic, like that I'm able to do this stuff now. So like, this is what lights me up and what gets me going. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. So I love it, man. And I definitely congratulate you, Andrew, for being on this side, man, and for everything that you do. So now you're on this side, so tell us just, briefly about some of the things that you got going on, and tell us about your nonprofit that you have as well. Now, because we heard the whole story, about how you got here, but now you're here, right? And so what are some of the things that you're involved in now, besides, doing podcasts, that's now taking, the things that you've learned and use it in a positive note in order to help others?
All right. So, one, I've been volunteering for about since November of last year. I've been volunteering at a sober living house that's about 10 minutes from where I live at. Tuesdays and Thursday nights are their free nights, like where they, don't really have, like, they don't have church, they don't have study, they don't have anything else going on. You know what I'm saying? It's their free time. I go over there and I hang out with the guys. They can pick my brain about my story and like my testimony and things like that. or what recovery is like for me. You know what I mean? Like when I celebrated 2 years back on February 3rd, that was a Tuesday actually. I went, and this is the only reason I did this now, is I went and bought a cake from Food Line, like a blank birthday cake, and I had the woman take the plastic birthday thing off, and I had her write "Happy Second Soberversary" on there, because I took it to share with the guys, like as a
Mhm.
visual thing of hope, you know what I'm saying, for them, like to see what's possible in recovery and stuff. So I took that with them and I shared it with them, and I told them, I said, look, I said, I didn't bring this cake for y'all to, I mean, even though they all did give me hugs and congratulate me and, all that kind of stuff. Like I said, I didn't do this for that. Like I did this for y'all to see, you know what I'm saying? Like the things that are possible when you put in the work and you continue on this path. Like, this
Mhm.
is what's possible. You know what I'm saying? Like after you graduate this program, because it's a year-long program, I said, when you celebrate a year clean, you can have a cake, that you could be celebrating with your family and your friends and your kids with, you know what I mean? Like, or you could be
Mhm.
bringing it back here to the Hope Center to share with
Yeah.
the guys that are going through the program at that particular time. You know what I mean? Like, but these are the things that are possible, and I said, I come here, and volunteer to hang out with you guys and stuff because I want y'all to ask me questions. I want, saying like for them to be like, well, how's your week going? What are your plans for this weekend? And tell them these things, that I've got going on so they can be like, man, I can't wait until I get out of this program so I can get to go live my life, you know what I'm saying? And not be chained down to addiction and all these things that we were a slave to for so long. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's one thing I've got going on. I've, like I said earlier, I'm a certified health, life, and recovery coach. So any recovery events and networking events that we have in the area, I go to hand out business cards and things like that. Cause like I said, I'm trying to make a career change on stuff. So, and I really
Mhm.
like, this is where I feel like I've been called to be at in life. So I'm continually like my 2 words. I made a post about that last night. Like what are your words? Like if you see the post on Facebook or whatever, people have like a word search thing up, and it says the first 3 words are like what you're gonna do this year, blah blah blah, whatever. Like my 2 words are networking and opportunity. So being on this podcast, on Stacy's, and doing these other spots and doing these other things, like that's what I feel like God has scheduled, what I'm saying, like has planned for me to do this year, like putting in the necessary work and taking the steps so that when he opens the door for me, what I'm saying, then I'm going to be standing in the hallway ready and wait. I don't want to be, you know, 10 rows down, you know what I'm saying, like in the wrong
Mhm.
spot whenever he opens the door. Like I want to be standing in the doorway. So when it opens, like I'm able to just step right through.
Right.
And then just hit the ground running. So like I've also got, like I said, Dope to Hope, my shirts. I don't know if you can see the back of it. You see that?
Yeah, I see most of it.
It says I'm here for it. Okay. That So Dope to Hope stands for Drugs Over Personal Evolution to Helping Other People Evolve. And that's a brand that I came up with. It's designed like this is the only shirt I have out right now. I have a Shopify store that I can leave a link for, that I can send you the link to put underneath here whenever we're done, whatever, like that you can check it out. And like if you're local in North Carolina and you want to meet, like I'll meet you. You know what I'm saying? The shirts normally are $20, but like I want to take the proceeds from these shirts and stuff and be able to give back to the recovery community, because a lot of nonprofits and places depend on strict donations and fundraisers and things like that to be able to help people. There's a
Mhm.
lot of for-profit sober living homes and recovery centers and stuff out there. Like I would donate to them too, but I would most definitely donate to other nonprofits and things like that before, because, you know, they need that money a lot more. And because that would go to help other people that probably don't have the money to pay to go and find and seek recovery and seek treatment and stuff like that. So, even if it helps pay for, a week of treatment for one person, like that's still a week of treatment that one person would not
Yeah.
receive otherwise. You know what I mean? So like that's my goal with that. And I've only got this design out right now, but I've got 3 more that I plan on coming out with in the coming months, by the summer for sure. So like you can stay tuned for that and keep a check in on things like that. And I've got 2 events that I'm trying to go to be able to set up a table to be able to sell my merchandise and build my brand and things like that. That's the other thing I'm working on, is building the Dope to Hope brand. So like when I go to these events and I hand out my business card, I explain what I do, what I'm trying to accomplish and things like that, because, the more I network, there's a quote about networking I saw a while back, and I told Stacy the same thing on her interview, that it says something about, the right conversation with the right person can put you years ahead of your goals. You know what I'm saying? So like, stop hesitating to reach out to people. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
send that email, send that text message, make that phone call, like, go to that networking event and like get out there and talk and meet and greet people, because you never know who you're going to meet out in the world somewhere. And that person, can, like I just said, can put you years ahead of where you would be if you were trying to do it by yourself. You know what I mean? And that goes back to the whole, don't be scared to ask for help. I mean, you never know what's out there if you never go and see. You know what I mean? So that's really something important to me too. And like, that's pretty much it. Like I said, I'm like a metal fabricator by day, but like at night, I'm constantly doing things like a podcast for you. I've got another one next week. I've got, I'm a part of that book that Stacy's a part of with John Emery or whatever, another fellow podcaster. So like, I'm going to be in his book that he's got going on. You know what I'm saying? So like, I'm all about networking and taking opportunities and things like that. Like I lived my whole life always playing it safe and always worried about what somebody else is going to think about me doing something that was going to make me happy. You know what I'm saying? But because my mental health and my self-confidence was not very high, you know what I'm saying, I've realized now half my life's over. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm already past the halfway point of my life. If I'm lucky, I'll live another 40 years, I'll be 42 in July. So,
Okay.
I don't try to live, to impress other people. Like as long as I'm happy, like I don't care what you think about me or what you think about what I'm doing or whatever. If it's making me happy and I feel that that's where God wants me to be at, then that's what I'm going to do. So
I love it. I definitely appreciate you, Andrew, and for sharing your story and for everything that you have been through to get you to this point and the difference that you're making now. And I definitely I listened to, of course, Stacy introduced us, but I listened to your interview with Stacy and definitely wanted to have you on to share your story here, because I think that is definitely impactful and it will definitely help our listeners who are kind of dealing with addiction and kind of trying to make their way out. I want you to have the last word, right? I want you to leave us with a word of advice or inspiration, however you feel, and I also want you to leave us with your social media handles or the website or the YouTube channel where we can find more information about your nonprofit organization and everything. So I want you to do that for me. I give you a couple of seconds to think about that. To my listeners, thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Make sure that you guys are following us on our should I say, checking us out on our website, which is the Deal to Heal, dealhealfulfill.org. Again, that's dealhealfulfill.org, which is our main website. Definitely going to get an overhaul soon. So I know it's a little outdated, but you still can go there and find out information about what we got going on. Also, make sure you guys go to earnestjamesspeakslife.com. Again, that's earnestjamesspeakslife.com to find out how you can have me to come out to be a speaker or to lead a workshop at your school or organization. I definitely love doing that, especially doing workshops, which is why I even started, like I said, we started the Deal to Heal School for living on the school platform, because there I'm able to do more workshops and teach more, and which is one of the things that I love to do. So make sure you guys go to earnestjamesspeakslife.com to see about having me come out to be a speaker or to lead a workshop at your school or facility. Also, ebooks by ejames.com. As you guys know, I've written several ebooks, and you could go to ebooksbyejames.com to purchase those ebooks. But unfortunately, that website no longer exists. ebooksbyejames.com no longer exists. However, you can still get all of our ebooks that I've written, and you actually can get them for free when you go and check out our school platform, which is again Deal to Heal School for Living. When you go there and check out our platform, the first 7 days again is absolutely free. There is a tab that says resources that you can go there and you can download all of our ebooks absolutely free while you're checking us out on our school platform. So make sure you guys go there because they're not available at ebooks by ejames anymore, but they are available on our school platform. So make sure that you guys go and check that out. Also, deal2healtees.com, which is our inspirational t-shirt line. Again, that's deal, the number 2, healtees.com. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tee and be inspired all day. That is our tagline. Make sure you guys go there and check us out at deal2healtees.com. Also, forgivenessmission.com. Over the last couple of years, I've been blessed to be a part of an organization. And what we do, we have free virtual workshops bi-monthly talking about the area of forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others, forgiveness of the world, all the different aspects where forgiveness is important in our lives today, because we believe that forgiveness is one of the missing parts that we are missing in our world today. So again, you can go to forgivenessmission.com in order to sign up for our next free virtual workshop. The workshops are absolutely free, but the information is priceless. Whenever you're listening to this episode, either a workshop just ended or there's one coming up. So make sure you go to forgivenessmission.com in order to sign up for our next free virtual workshop. And also, one of the things that I'm very excited about is we have started our nonprofit. We have now started our nonprofit, which is the Deal to Heal the World Incorporated. Again, that's Deal to Heal the World Incorporated, because we want to do more stuff for the community, but we don't want to do it so that it's free to the community. So all of those workshops and giveaways and things of that nature that we want to bring to the community, we want to bring it at no cost for the community. But that being said, there is still a cost to bring it together. So we're asking for your donations to donate again to Deal to Heal the World Incorporated, which is our new nonprofit. The information will be in the description where you can go and make a one-time or recurring donation to help us bring more healing and fulfillment into the world, into our communities. So we're very excited about that. So make sure you guys go and check us out there. Andrew, once again, I want to say thank you so very much for being on. Thank you for coming on and sharing your story and your expertise and your experiences. I definitely appreciate you. I want you to have the last word, so the floor is yours.
Thank you again for having me, Ernest. Like I said, I enjoy doing this stuff, and this is where I'm meant to be, is doing stuff like this. So thank you for the opportunity again. All right, last words. I would say we didn't even really get to speak on gratitude much. The attitude of gratitude is going to take you to so many higher places than, if you're in the attitude of like lack or want, or like you're always comparing yourself to somebody else or trying to keep up with the Joneses, like you're not going to have a very happy life. Attitude of gratitude is where it's at. As corny as that might sound, like it's the truth. And I've found that out a lot in my recovery journey over the last just over 2 years. And a good way to practice gratitude, and what I do, in the mornings when I'm driving to work, I don't listen to the radio or anything like that anymore. I ride in silence, and I list, I name off, 10 things I'm grateful for. And then I pray for people that need to be prayed for, that I know that are close to me or that I've heard about. And then I set my intentions for the day. If you just wing it on a day, you know what I mean? Like a lot of times if you're just kind of up in the air, like, well, we'll see what happens, when I get to work, like, very rarely does that ever, turn out good, at least not in my experience. Right. So, if you set your intentions during the day or for the day also, that helps tremendously. And also I ask for strength and guidance and wisdom to get me through the day as well. And then the last thing I do before I go to sleep at night is I do the same thing. 10 things I'm grateful for, and those should really be different because you just lived a whole day. You know what I mean? So 10 other things you're grateful for, pray for, family, friends, loved ones, people that need it. And, just ask the Lord to protect you and stuff, as you sleep, your family, friends, whoever, and, go to sleep. And like, for me, that has been such a game changer. Like I've really been heavy on this, like the last 9 months or so. And it's been a phenomenal game changer for me myself. So like, if you don't already do that, like give it a try and see what happens. Cause like I can guarantee you that you should be feeling differences, within a week or so. But other than that, just take care, everybody. And yeah, don't be afraid to ask for help. Like your teacher in school always told you, the dumbest question is the one you never ask, and you never know what's on the other side of asking for help if you don't ask. So please don't hesitate.
All right. And so what is the website where they can look at check your t-shirts and stuff out?
It's dope, DOPE, the number 2, hope, HOPE .myshopify.com. And that's just HTTPS, / whatever. There's no www. So, and right. Like I said, I'll give you this so you can put that in the comments underneath the podcast or whatever. Like, and also, my coaching website is HTTP, / dope to hope.net. Same DOPE, the number 2, hope.net. And then Facebook and Instagram are both Andrew.Lidman84. Those are my handles for there. So, and that's
all
right,
it. All right. And I'll make sure that I have all this information.
YouTube it's all capital letters, dope _2_hope is my handle on YouTube. So yeah, you can check it out as well.
All right. We'll make sure that we have all that information in the descriptions. Make sure you guys go there and check us out. To my listeners, again, thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, where our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Until next time, you guys be blessed. Thanks for listening to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Remember to listen, like, subscribe, and share. This episode has been brought to you by Deal to Heal Teas. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Remember, our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for listening.